Welcome, Anime Loungers, to another episode of the Anime Lounge podcast. I'm your host, Lance, and I'm here with my other host, Matt. Today, we will be talking about Jobless Reincarnation, Part 2 of Season 1. Depending on which platform you watch it on, it could be considered Season 2, could be considered Season 1, but we will be covering episodes 13 through 23, plus the OVA. And before we get started, we like to introduce our adult beverages of choice. Today I will be drinking some sake, some Taiku original brand, and I'll be chasing that down with some Wisconsin's Leinenkugel Summer Shandy. What about you, Matt?
I will also be having some Taiku sake and some Summer Shandy. I am so glad I went to Costco today and picked this up. I've been looking for it, longing for it. It's just that nice, refreshing summer beer.
I am 100% on board with that. This, as far as Leinenkugels goes, this is my number one favorite beer out there. Just to throw it out there, like today is April 9th. We're not at that summer date yet, but like it's just around the corner, and I am so happy it's here because I drink this shit all summer long.
Oh yeah, it's going to be stocked up in the fridge for a while.
Oh yeah, so good.
So Lance, can you give us our Lance's lessons for this episode?
Today's Lance's lesson is going to be the Japanese word for water. It is mizu, M-I-Z-U. And that is quite fitting for today because we know that Rudy and Roxy both capitalize in the magic of water magic. So mizu is a very common word and it can be used every day.
Yeah, definitely. That's coming along with our theme of just trying to pick things that you can constantly use. This will definitely be something that you're going to be able to use daily if you really wanted to.
Right. So make sure you get your several glasses of mizu in every single day. All right. So we typically start our conversations with some character talk. Matt, did we change who we might have thought is our favorite character by chance?
Oh man, Ruijerd is up there, but I think I'm going to have to go with Team Eris. And for part 2 of...
Yeah? Jumping
Yes.
on the Eris train? Where I know I chose Eris last episode.
Yes, she had the most character development when it came to part 2.
Oh, by far. She is just exploded with experience.
Yes.
At the very least. One of my favorite parts about Eris growing is when Ruijerd told her that she is now considered a warrior.
Yep.
And then she started getting all emotional about that. I thought that was... I was feeling that for her.
Mm-hmm. And you could see the development that she had when in the Beast Village in
Mhm.
Galen's hometown, which is something I do want to talk about, just that stuff. But to go back to this part is when she's speaking with those 2 beast girls.
Yep.
And you just see the development that she had from being basically this giant spoiled brat to having these kids basically kind of talk down to her, and she didn't blow up on them.
Oh, yeah. Like, she kept her cool. Like, she could have beat the shit out of these 2 little kids.
Yep.
But instead, she held her ground, took the beating that, was nothing to her. But at the same time, like, it was all a learning lesson.
Yeah, it was awesome to start seeing that character development that she had, and then pushing, oh man, I'm drawing a blank on it, the one beast girl to train,
Tanya.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tanya was the one I wanted to fight. There was that other
her
beast child that wanted to do her own thing, but
Rakanya.
maybe. I didn't take any notes on her,
She
unfortunately.
was really not really anybody to take notes on.
No. But no, I totally 100% appreciated everything that Eris did in this entire second half of this series, season, and 100% agree. And like what I said in our last episode, I'm still going to continue with Eris being my favorite character of this entire series. But to throw out another name, maybe give, you know what? I want to say Ruijerd, but maybe let's wind it up a little bit. Like Rudy.
Yeah.
Rudy is, like, I know he's the main character and he's supposed to be everyone's favorite, typically. But at the same time, he has gone through some insane and dramatic upbringing. Not upbringing.
We could just say character development on him too.
Yeah, he's grown so much, like not just as himself, but like even, as his like 40-plus-year-old inner mind, like he's also learning at the same time. But like Rudy as a character himself, just growing insanely. And 2 points that I can say on Rudy is one, where, kind of jumping a little bit to the end, where he meets up with the dragon god Orsted.
Yep.
And and he kind of pulls out that like super colorful fireball blast.
Yeah, the super flame attack.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that was given like a name or anything, but that was pretty fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So mad props to that. And at the same time, I guess I can't give him too much credit at this, but like, you know, when he finally laid
him and Eris finally having sex.
Yeah, finally laid her down to bed, but like he was totally on board with waiting until his promised date, and then he eventually gave in because he was essentially, you know, too horny at that time period. But yeah, he was 14.
He was 14.
Hormones are there.
She initiated it, so it's
hardcore.
Basically to get their agreement, you could call, out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And you could tell that she loved Rudy.
Yep.
And I would believe that he actually loves her back. I feel like if he had to pick, it would be hard, but I feel like he would pick Eris.
Okay, let's just throw all three of them into the mix.
Yep.
We got Eris, we got Sylphie, and we got Roxy.
Yep.
Sylphie's kind of been buried below as far as this entire, we'll just say the collective season 1 has gone.
Yep.
Because Roxy's come up here and there and he still gets flustered over her.
Yep.
You know, he's made that funny figure.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty clever figure, by the way. I totally give props to the creator of this show who turned one figure into two figures just on a
clothing removal.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that was clever. Like when he started describing that, I'm like, what a great idea. Damn, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, because you think you'd just throw a layer of clothing over that, but I was mildly I was entertained by that. That was just a good idea for all those people who are interested in that. I'm pretty sure they all got a kick out of that. Yes. Especially for, what's that kid's brother's name?
It's Pat's brother.
Pat's brother, there it is. Oh, speaking of, Pat was considered a cursed child, was he not? Or was his brother the one that was cursed child? It was a little confusing.
His brother was considered the cursed child. Pat was just a noble Pax. Excuse me, Pax. Pax. Yep. Yeah, he was just the noble / king of the land. No, nothing wrong with him or anything.
Okay.
And Pax's brother, who would never actually get a name of, was the cursed individual. I will say in the manga, he's not cursed. They never bring up that.
Nothing about a curse?
No, which I can go into a little bit more in depth later, but yeah, he's not.
Yeah, look at my notes. I don't think I didn't even write down a name for Pax's brother, the one who was obsessed with the figure.
The Roxy figure / Rudy. Yes.
Interesting. No. I'm sure maybe we can do like a Google dive into it, but it's not worth it.
Unless he gets brought up later in the series, he's not, his name isn't mentioned. Like, because for everybody listening, in case they don't remember, is I watch the anime and then I read the mangas. Mm-hmm. So that was something I'm like, did I miss his name? So when I was reading through the manga, I was paying attention to see if they brought up his name. I'm like, wait, they never said his name.
You're not going to be sidetracked while you're reading. It's a lot different. Like, I know there's been plenty of times where I was multitasking, but I was still paying attention enough. But like, yeah, I try hard to make sure I write down everybody's names.
Yep.
Like, even that side character Geese, I made sure I wrote down his name.
Yeah, because in part 1, he was nobody. At that moment in time, he was nobody.
Geese was in part 1?
Geese was at the very end of part 1. He was at the end of part 1.
Oh, wow. Didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
As far as his like true form came out is when he got thrown into that dungeon with Rudy for cheating at gambling or something, like dice.
Oh, that's not. Excuse me, I'm thinking of Gallus. Geese is not in part 1.
Okay, so who exactly is Gallus?
Gallus is the...
I think I wrote that down somewhere, but continue.
Smuggler. He is the smuggler.
Oh, that piece of shit guy.
Yes.
Yeah, the one who promised to give Team Dead End a boat ride on to wherever they were headed.
Yep.
In exchange that they helped with like smuggling kids and beast children more specifically, right?
So technically what he wanted was to free the kids because they got kidnapped by different smugglers.
Yeah.
So he wanted to take out his competition, and to do that, he was using Dead End.
Okay, that's right.
Take out the competition.
Yeah, Dead End was going to destroy the competition so that he can overtake it. Okay, that sounds more familiar.
Yeah. Yep. But to kind of go back with just our conversation with Rudy, he is changed so much. And then I liked at the very end, they show just he's no longer that individual world that he reincarnated from.
Oh, not a chance is he. Yeah, he wanted to super hardcore make sure that he wasn't going to make the same mistakes that he did
Yep.
back in his old life.
Yep.
And we saw that through him and Paul reuniting.
Yes. Yep. And I don't know if you took it this way, but how I took it is when he woke back up from when he broke out of his depression, I took that as him no longer being that person that he was.
Like back in the first half?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think what's going to happen from now on is anytime that he speaks with that god, Hitagami,
Man God, Hitagami, yep.
he is going to see himself as his 14-plus-year-old self.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's going to see himself as his previous life.
Right. Because he's overcome all of his fears and all of his anxieties that he used to have.
Yep.
He sees his flaws from who he used to be, compares them to, how he can potentially put his past life on other people.
Yep.
Like I was saying with Paul, like he saw that Paul messed up and Paul was strong enough to take control of where he messed up and continue to push forward, where Rudy's, his original self, because we never get a name on his original self, do we?
No.
So his original self would have just given up and sat there and just jerked off to internet porn and played video games.
And never took that initiation to speak to those people that were trying to help. Granted, Paul did have somebody that was like, hey man, go be here, go do this. But even still, Rudy's previous life, he wouldn't have done that even if somebody told him to.
No, not a chance. He was too ashamed of his bullied self.
Yeah, and understandably, like what he went through is super traumatic, and it'd be insanely hard to push through it, but you can't just be a shut-in for the rest of your life because of it either.
Right.
So
you have to grow. You have to push beyond it. Learn from what makes you hurt and just push what makes you strong.
yeah, and then I liked how they brought up the fact that after Rudy looked into Paul's face, he's like, I've seen that face. That was my face in his previous life.
After essentially beat up his only friend that gave him a chance.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I want to kind of talk about that scene in itself. As far as one of my favorite scenes goes, that was kind of like that whole reuniting with Paul again, where all the emotions came true.
Yep.
And Paul was sitting there trying to be like a stubborn, strong man, but like you can see he was hurting inside. And then as soon as Rudy figured that like, no, we need to hit the reset button. We're stronger than this. We need to hit reality. And he told him to get down on his knees, open up his arms, and then Rudy jumped into his arms. I'm like, fuck. I almost choked up right there. To me, that was a strong moment. That meant a lot to the emotional side of this anime.
Yeah,
personally,
they like to play on your heartstrings.
Yeah, I mean, even though this is like a super cringy, perverted show at times.
Yep.
Like there's so many different angles that this just stabs at. But yeah, like I said, that was one of my favorite scenes. Just that one in itself.
Okay. Yeah, I would definitely have to agree. Did you have any other favorite scenes? Anything else that stood out the most to you?
Well, the next one that comes to my mind was when we met Orsted, the dragon god.
Okay.
Not only was that just a cool fight scene altogether, but just the fact that so much information got dropped like in an instant that you didn't necessarily have to be like mansplained to.
Yep.
But like you just instantly put two and two together, and then this dude just obliterated all of Team Dead End, and there was enough mercy to like revive them through that other chick.
Shizuka, that's her name.
No. Oh, maybe. I wrote down Nanahoshi.
Nanahoshi. Okay, yep.
But yeah, that's probably her full name. But that's if I were just to name that off the top of my list where I would put another awesome scene. Do you have a scene in your mind?
I would say one of my favorite ones is the part where Eris kind of backtalks to Geis.
Yep. He's the leader of the Beast clan that they're all part of. Yep.
And just the emotion, and you can almost tell the regret that he had that he didn't know his sister anymore.
Ghislaine?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a very super interesting scene. Like, you just see that, like, he has this, like, instant regret. Like, he thought she was a piece of shit, and then she's surpassed him in so many ways, and she's overcome all of his expectations. That was I agree. That was a very powerful realization for him.
Yep, and knowing that it's like, hey, my sister became something, and unfortunately, my kids are probably never going to see her.
Yeah, right? Yeah, especially since since all the two little sisters, like, Dad told us never to be like her Aunt Ghislaine.
Yep.
And then to find out that she's just someone to actually look up to.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, they're training under someone who was trained under her, which is pretty powerful in itself. Real before we lose sight of guys, again, he's the father, the leader of this Beast Clan. I don't know if you've noticed, but Guys is the same exact English voice actor as Benny Maru from Fire Force.
Oh, yep. Now that you say it, I'm like, wait, that is true.
Yes, and I did look it up, and I did make sure it was true, and yeah, that was fun. I was like, it's another one of those connections. I mean, there was a couple of them that I caught on to, but this is the one I wanted to talk about specifically. So I like his voice. It's a fun connection right there.
It's a unique voice. It's definitely a good, powerful voice.
Yeah, Guys is pretty cool. I wouldn't expect to see him any further in the series.
No, probably not, unless
there's a reunite. Unless
him
and
Ghislaine
reunite.
Go back, which could happen because Eris and Ghislaine are moving forward. Granted, that's something we could talk about too, is what do you expect for season 3?
Oh my god.
Well, technically season 2, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, well, I mean, what we can expect next is so crazy because all 3 people of our party have split ways, and I have no idea. Dude, it's so crazy, I don't even know. We have Rudy in search for his mom, Zenith, and then we have Rujerd doing his own thing, trying to continue to clear his name.
Yep.
And then we have Eris traveling with Ghislaine. I don't even know what their purpose is. She just wants to find her own way.
She, from what I took out of it, is she wants to make herself worthy of standing next to Rudy because she does not feel that she is worthy of actually calling herself his.
Right. I mean, she made mention that, like, she's older than Rudy, and yet she's, like, beneath him.
Yes.
Okay, well, now that you're saying this, the first thing that comes to my mind is something to give her a power boost. Do you think she's going to get, like, one of the eyes from Kishirika?
Kishirika?
That crazy-ass chick.
Kishiriku.
She had that scene... Kishiriku, sorry. She had that fucking scene where she was slamming beers, and she had that giant-ass beer gut. That was super funny. I appreciate that.
Yes.
I don't care for how she's presented, but I guess at the same time, I totally appreciate how crazy she is, and she's just doing whatever. And then she had that little drink-off party when she met Roxy. Yeah, so that was pretty funny. But yeah, I would like to see that Eris would come in contact with her because she wanted to when Rudy got that eye. Like, she wanted to go hunt her down and get an eye for herself anyway. So I can see Eris getting an eye herself.
That would be...
just to a different degree, like a whole different power.
Well, I kind of thought when Roxy helped her out, that it was like, oh, okay, so we're going to get all of our characters getting these eyes, because one thing that they talk about in the manga is that they can basically communicate. Kishiriku, and Rudy can communicate with each other because of that eye. So they are linked.
Really?
Yep. So Rudy knows where his mother is because of her. So when
shit, we don't know anything we don't know any of that knowledge as far as the anime is concerned right now.
Yep.
Maybe that's going to be what they'll figure out. Like, he'll just wake up in his adventures and he'll have like a dream where he sees his mom and then he knows exactly where to go.
And that could be something they do, but that's how he knows where to go in the end of season 1, is because when Roxy asks to find where his family is, he knows. At that point is when he knows, because
Rudy knows
because Kishirika basically states, hey, Paul, Lila, Lilia, Norn, and Aisha are all together, and then Zenith is in this labyrinth. And she also asks where Rudy is and tells Roxy where Rudy is.
Right.
So that happens, and then there's a moment where Rudy's like, oh, okay, well, now I know where Zenith is. And
there wasn't an exact location, though, right? Like, as far as the anime was concerned, I don't think there was an exact location.
She was in a labyrinth in this area, is what they say.
Okay.
So,
yeah, it was very broad.
Which,
from what I remember,
I'm going to take it kind of like the only other labyrinth anime that I've watched, which is Alpharetta. And
well, we covered that, but
yep. Well, they know where the labyrinths are in the region because, well, the region only has one labyrinth kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's going to be like, oh, okay, well, this region only has that labyrinth, so I know where it is, kind of thing.
All right, so it'll probably be like an obvious point.
Yep.
But no one dares to enter because it's difficult to some degree.
Well, I mean, you can tell that it's going to be super difficult and powerful because Kishirika, can't see where Zenith is within the labyrinth.
Right.
But to kind of go back to my original point, is I thought all of the the basically characters in the party were going to get this. We're going to get an eye because I think she talks about having 12 eyes or 6 eyes.
Something like, I think it was over 10. That sounds familiar. Like 12 sounds familiar. Real quick, before you get too much further, I just had another idea come to my mind. Like we were told that the man god couldn't see any of Orsted's locations or what he was doing or his future or anything along those lines.
Yep.
Because he was a curse himself. He had what, 400, 300 curses, or he had an insane amount of curses.
Yeah, it was a bunch.
What if Zenith is kind of under the same boat? Like, what if Kisharika can't see Zenith because she's cursed to some degree? Like, it might be a little bit of a stretch, but like at the same time, if nothing could be truly seen, I wouldn't.
That would be. I could only sort of kind of see that being a thing, but I don't really think it is. Only because you have to get something in order to transfer a curse. So the Superds got the spears, and so that curse from Laplace was transferred to the Superbs.
Right.
So I don't know where Zenith would have gotten, what Zenith would have received in order to be able to receive the curse away from somebody else.
That's a fair point at this moment. I mean, it could always be explained in
Yeah.
the next season because we have literally nothing to go on at this point.
Yep, exactly. And it'd be interesting to see what happens. Or it could just be she's in some hellhole of a labyrinth.
Right. She could just be down under. No one knows any better.
She might be within some sort of barrier technique type stuff where she can't get out. Nobody can go in. Stuff like that, maybe. It'll be interesting.
We've seen plenty of barriers. A barrier that Rudy couldn't even break out of.
Yep.
Which is kind of crazy enough because, we saw him in that Beast Village and he could have easily just exploded everything and just ran. But then for whatever reason, he just said, oh, speaking of being a prisoner, I appreciated his little monologue about how I was like, oh, this is a single room, rent-free, no money necessary kind of deal. Like food's given to you and you get a free bath. And he did that twice in the second half. And the first time was definitely way funnier than the second time, but it was definitely funny.
And I also found it hilarious where he told Geese that it's like, I've been in this prison longer than you. I'm your elder.
I mean, and then Geese instantly calls him like master.
Yep.
Which is, that was totally great. And then I guess that was kind of cool to see Geese like pretty much talk down to Paul. Like, yeah, dude, I've seen him on my own. He can handle himself, and you gotta appreciate that this little child held his own in the demon. Was it the demon continent?
Yeah, it was a demon continent. Yep.
Yeah, the demon continent, which is way harsher than you can even imagine. And then he survived, and he made it here.
Yeah. So in the manga, because this wasn't something I was initially going to go over, when Geese and Paul are talking, they're doing a quest together where they're going to kill some sewer monsters.
Okay, so they did have a prior like engagement. They weren't just like bar buddies.
No, they were actually in the Black Fang group together.
Oh, so he's an old member?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I didn't. I mean, that could have been an assumption, but like I didn't want to actually assume that.
I don't remember them talking specific. I think they just call them old pals or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were in the Black Fang group together. But they're doing a quest and they're killing some sewer monsters, and one's like a B class. And basically, he says that monster that we just killed is a weak monster compared to everything that's in the demon continent, and you should be thankful that your son's still alive, that he can make it through all this, instead of just being like, well, your son could have just lost his legs or something. Like,
oh yeah, and then Paul started having all these images of like his son like begging for, not essentially begging for his life, but like pleading.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty powerful enough. I like I was saying earlier, that was one of my favorite scenes, is when shit got real between Paul and Rudy, realizing how much they needed to like just get grips on each other, like how much they actually missed and loved each other.
Yeah, and that they need to quit basically being stubborn jackasses and just be happy that they're together.
Yep. And it took to Paul's eyes a 14-year-old to break the ice.
Depression can do crazy things to you though, because
I
mean, you could tell that he wanted to say something, and he just couldn't bring himself into essentially apologizing to Rudy.
Right. Sticking on that area of the episodes, I was totally expecting Paul to join Rudy and just, expanding his little party and traveling together.
Yeah, I could see that.
Was that what you expected? Were you shocked when they split paths and took their own different different routes. I know I was.
I was not, only because Paul mentions that he's essentially the leader of the group that's getting all of the stranded individuals back.
Right.
So I was like, Paul can't. It didn't surprise me when Paul didn't leave with him because of Paul's other engagements that he had.
Yeah, he's got his own mission.
Yep.
I mean, it's a noble mission. Saving. When it was first introduced, we thought it was like child smuggling, but we found that it was child rescuing.
Yep.
Which is kind of a fun little turn of events.
Child rescuing, and I mean, you see Lilia getting rescued as well. So it's children and adults that are getting saved by this group of people.
Yeah, because the Mana disaster, is that what it was called?
Yeah.
That Mana disaster was the crazy event that tore apart all of the mainland and sent everybody in any direction, whether it was dry land or in the middle of a pond of water, which is crazy enough. We saw that Lilia and her daughter were just at the bottom of a pond or something. That was crazy. But we can see that child trafficking could easily be taking place at that point, because to those scumbags, that was just easy money and whatnot. So he at least has a noble mission to rescue people. And
yeah, exactly.
At the same time, he's working at trying to find where his wife is.
Yeah, he's to say she's on the back burner sounds bad, but unfortunately,
right,
that's kind of what it is.
Because he doesn't know, he doesn't have a lead.
Yep.
And ideally, I don't know, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, you gotta
wait and see until you find something to go off of. So you can't necessarily blame him, no matter how much of a piece of shit you might think he is, even if he is potentially banging those other chicks on the side.
Well, just the one.
Maybe just that one.
Oh, it's funny. So I was watching the episode where Rudy first meets up with Paul and his new group, and the chick shows up, and of course that's when my wife gets home, and she's like, "What the fuck?"
Ah, yes. Everybody walks in on you watching anime when the boobies are slopping around everywhere.
She's like, "God damn, does she have so much side boob? That's insane." I'm like, yeah, that's good old RPG style armor right there. Just barely cover the boobs and call it a day. And then you got the guy with like full knight armor going on.
Yeah, but it has the same plus armor as the one who's wearing half a bikini.
Yeah, gotta love that anime timing and
anime logic. Bring.
So it's really good. As far as season 2 is concerned, just to kind of go back to that conversation. So we know we can assume season 2 is gonna have Rudy finding, or at least attempting to find his mom. We also have that little snippet at the end of that last episode where we see the elf-eared person, and then we know Eris and Galeen are traveling. I'm going to assume you're not going to see Rougerd in season 2. You
Maybe
might
not much. I can't expect much at this point, at least not in the first half.
Yeah, I think you're going to get a lot of, you may or may not get snippet stuff, kind of like what we saw at the end of season 1.
Right.
But other than that, I can't, at least as far as plot building, I can't see him being super important to the season.
No. And just to rewind you a little bit, going back to the elf at the end of episode 23, who we can assume is Sylvie because everything revolves around her. I don't know about you, but I watched my English dub with English sub, and they referred to her as Fitz.
Yes.
And Fitz isn't Sylvie. So I'm wondering what's going on there, because they give the assumption that this is obviously Sylvie.
Yep.
5 years in the future since we last saw her? Because when maybe 4 years to be more specific, because
give or take,
he wasn't. This wasn't exactly a full 5-year deal. But yeah, we're getting pretty close to there, and I want to see how much she's grown, because that's a cliffhanger in itself. And I'm glad they showed her at the end, because like we said at the end of our last episode, like the whole reason for Rudy going to the Richie Rich place was to earn money to put him and Sylvie through magic school, and we haven't seen shit about Sylvie since then, except that she's not dead. That's all we know. I mean, until we got to the end of episode 23. So I'm super excited to see what's going on with Sylvie. It's more especially because she had that little moment of like voiceless incantation or whatever. So she's going to be powerful as hell.
Yep.
And I cannot wait to see what happens. And I want to know if she has a lot of anger built up for whatever reason, and she's just going to be this petty, like, I'm going to just screw over everybody, or if she's just going to be someone else entirely. I'm going to I don't know why I want to. I just feel like that's the way some things veer. But she's going to have some form of anger.
Okay. All I'll say say is the manga may or may not spoil it,
Oh no.
but we'll save that for later.
Okay. Now I'm interested. I want to. Okay. We'll wait.
I will say right now, I'm not going to talk too much about it because I don't want to bring any spoilers for what season 2 will be.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. As far as the manga goes, go up until what we know as far as the anime goes.
Yes.
Which is the fair point, because we know obviously more. There is so many cliffhangers. There's definitely more to come.
And that's all I will say about that. Well, we can talk about it just a little bit later when we have the manga mentions.
Mm-hmm.
So fortunately, I can't talk about what I want to see from Sylphie or Fet, as we've seen her at the end of season 1.
You say Fet?
Was it Fet? Not Fet. It was.
I wrote down Fitz.
Fitz. That's what it is.
F-I-T-Z.
Yeah, Fitz.
Okay.
Excuse me. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. That's just what the subtitles said.
Yeah, it's Fitz. I'm interested to see what happens to Rudy. I'm wondering because Rudy and Roxy are now going to the same place at the same time.
So now we can expect them to meet up.
Yep.
Finally.
Maybe. That would be interesting to see if that.
Maybe they'll accidentally miss paths again.
Yeah, Rudy might get there early and then, save his mother, and then as they just kind of miss each other.
Right.
Could be that. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, Rougeard might end up running into Roxy and that group. That would be interesting.
What is Rougeard's path at this point, do you think? He did his mission. He returned the kids to the essentially destroyed area of Eris's family, who by the way, if you guys don't remember, Eris's entire family was blamed for the mana disaster, and they were all executed, which is fucking crazy.
It wasn't all of them. It was only her grandfather.
I thought there was 3 names that were thrown out there.
So there were, but the only individual that was blamed for the mana disaster. So is it mana or mana?
Okay. We should throw this out there. I was under the assumption of the Japanese pronunciation of mana.
Okay.
But this anime says time and time again with a hard A, mana.
Okay.
So let's just go with the English form. At this point, I'm cool with mana.
Okay. So Soros, the grandfather, basically took the blame of the mana disaster and got executed because of it.
Right.
Philip and Hilda were killed later on.
Do you have relations, or are you just
so
names
Philip
written down?
And Hilda were mother and father of Eris.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they were found dead by Ghislaine, excuse me. Later on, we know that because
Ghislaine found them dead. She's not the one that killed them.
No, she found them dead.
Okay, just to make that straight.
Because the butler individual,
the one with the white stripe in his hair.
Yes.
I didn't write down his name.
Alphonse, Alphonse.
Sure.
He had mentioned that Philip and Hilda were dead.
Yep.
So we know Eris's entire family has been killed at this point. Or not gotten killed, but is deceased at this point. That's a better way to say it.
Okay.
Because we never get a clarification on how Philip and Hilda die. We just know that they're dead.
Yeah, because we got that one cutscene where grandfather was executed in that room. And we knew that way prior to Eris finding out.
Yeah, I think that was at the end of season 1, part 1.
Yeah, well, no, I think that was in the beginning of part 2. I'm pretty sure it was episode 13, 14. It was
okay. It
was maybe I wrote down a note about that, but that was
in the very
relatively
beginning.
Quick. Yeah, we knew that wherever they were it's not like we didn't know where they were heading, but we knew that where they were heading, it was going to be a worthless cause.
Yep. And then the individual that the butler individual basically pseudo promised to was going to be that fat noble. That was who he was talking about, in case you didn't know who he was actually talking about.
A fat noble?
So Doris, remember how so the butler is talking about he is going to send Eris to
marry someone else.
That was going to be Doris's area.
Okay.
And that was you see him being all shady during the execution execution of her godfather or of her grandfather. So you remember that the fat guy at the noble or at the kingdom during the execution ceremony?
Was this kind of in the
Yeah,
earlier
the
part of
beginning.
the series? Okay.
Yep.
I guess it's been a minute.
So the fat guy is the individual that they're talking about. So Doris is who they were talking about. Is who that butler is talking about.
Okay, so at this point, I would hope to learn more about him in this next season.
You're probably not, because Eris obviously isn't going to
Pursue it.
his kingdom, so she wants to do her own thing / sleep with Rudy.
She doesn't give a shit. Real quick, before we get too much further, I'm out of a beer. My sake is about on its last drop. We're gonna go and get some more. So let's take a quick break.
And now that we're back from our beer run, definitely those lighting googles are going down real smooth. Lance, there was something I know was kind of bugging you that we didn't talk about in our previous conversation, and that was the opening credits.
Yeah. When I left our studio last time when we were talking, I wanted to make sure that we talked about how these opening credit scenes took place. And now I'm going to just talk about it right now. Is that the way that this show introduces its opening credits with its, you need your opening song and stuff like that. But like this show 100% shows how I want opening credits to show. It's not going to be something that gives away anything of the entire series. It's going to be just natural, whatever.
It's a continuation of the episode.
Oh my god, I didn't know how to show. I'm totally on par with don't even show an opening credit scene. I mean, obviously you need to give the credits due, but at the same time, any kind of future...
No spoilers, no nothing. So, Bleach in the beginning, Bleach's openings, Yu Yu Hakusho's openings.
Or even My Hero.
Yep.
My Hero gave an opening where Deku was gonna, when they're at the training area, and then he was battling with some guy, and you just assumed that dude was the bad guy, but then you find out that he was just another student that was just brought in.
Yep.
And it totally misled you. That was cool. I mean, I was totally fine with being misled.
Yep.
But at the same time, I don't want to have these expectations. So, Jobless Reincarnation did it absolutely perfect. Give your opening credits to just a smooth introduction into your surroundings, into the private lives. It doesn't even need to be private lives. It's just how things are working in your natural surroundings. And everything about the introduction was beautiful. The animation was beautiful. You just appreciated everything. It was just a smooth transition into what the episode itself is going to be. And I think that should be a staple and something to look up to for other studios to just learn from.
Yes, I will agree that the openings for this show are exactly what we needed openings to be. I will say ReZero's openings are on par, and ending credits are on par. When it comes to ReZero, there are some episodes that are literally 29 minutes long. The entire episode is 29 minutes because they have their opening as part of the episode and their closing as part of the episode.
Oh, I cannot put my finger on shows that have done that, but I have seen that in the past before. Part of me wants to say that stupid ass Mars anime, but oh shit, apparently I don't have a sake. Anyway, I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's very few and far between when it comes to having your opening and closing credits go into, or is a better way to say it, go into the show itself. But to just kind of go back to what we were talking about, the opening credits they did an outstanding job. And the closing credits, even the closing, I thought the artwork for the closing was really, really good. So,
I'm the wrong person to talk about this because I watched maybe 2 seconds worth of the closing credits. I did notice that they did change.
Yep.
Not only that, but I did also notice that the opening credits from the first half to the second half also changed at like what, episode 14?
Yes.
Something about but yeah, I'm the wrong person to ask about credits itself.
Yeah, because I skip over them as well.
You okay? So I'm not the only person.
I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, when it comes to the skipping, I have it down to a science.
Yep.
So
we're on the same page. I mean, not to give any disrespect to the people who put all their efforts into our amazing anime, and don't get us wrong, we totally 100% appreciate you. Technically, we're on a time crunch.
Yes.
And we're trying to just get our content in. And
except for I did watch almost this entire season in one day. I watched like 9 episodes in one day.
Yeah, speak for yourself. just to throw that out there. Yeah, you told me, and totally jealous of you.
I was sick and I took off of work, so I was doing nothing but laying around in sweatpants and a sweatshirt, trying not to die.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna be an advocate for what I'm about to say. I'm not afraid to say this on air. I got a vasectomy last week, and I was 100% prepared to watch like this entire series in one day. And then I was gonna talk to Matt and like, you know what? I got all the time in the world. Let's just podcast this as soon as possible.
Yep.
But it turns out that my bitch ass doctor was like, yeah, you can go to work in like 2 days. It doesn't matter how physically active your job is. I don't care. Fuck him. My balls hurt. So my balls hurt after I took 3 days to recover, and I went back to a very physically active job, and it felt like my balls were a little bit consistently flicked because I am constantly squatting.
I will say there was no way I was doing anything up until probably Wednesday. Like I couldn't talk. It was very difficult for me to say anything. So I would not have been able to have a conversation up until probably a couple days ago.
Okay, so I guess that worked out.
It did. It 100% worked out.
You were just sick and now you're 100% better, and here we are today, and everything worked out the way that it could.
Good when plans go as they should, right?
Yep, that's the original plan. I have a couple like LOL moments that I would like to throw out there.
All right.
By chance. I think I have 3 of them written down.
Okay, let's hear them.
Okay, so in episode 13, in the very beginning, I wrote down, if you die of seasickness, I will make fun of you. Okay, so that makes fun of the fact that Rudius and Eris are constantly thrown up on any kind of sea voyager.
Yep.
I thought that was always funny.
Okay,
and
so
then
that one was hilarious. Yep.
That was pretty funny. Episode 18, I wrote, quote, visit at least every 20 years. That was to point at Roxy revisiting her family.
Yep.
Which we haven't really touched on too much, but Roxy finally visits her family after obviously like 20 years, and it was very awkward to begin with, and we all know that Roxy is the one that can't have the ability to telepathically communicate with the rest of her clan, which is sad, which is why Roxy left. The haha moment was when Mom told Roxy, at least visit every 20 years and we'll be happy, which is fucking insane because 20 years is an insane amount of time. And then the next one is episode 21 when Eris and Ruijerd are sparring together, and Eris is going super hardcore, and she's pretty much on par with Ruijerd at this point. I mean, I don't know if you want to say it's on par, but like she's putting up her own defense. And Ruijerd eventually gives Eris the title of warrior, and Eris is just ecstatic. She's super excited, and she's like, Rudy, I'm so excited. Pinch me. Let me know this isn't a dream. And then Rudy pinches her, but he pinches her in the nipple. Like, despite all of the hentai, the dirtiness of this show, I had a good fucking laugh about that.
That was hilarious. That was when I saw that the first time. I was like, "Oh man, that's."
That is most definitely my most favorite haha moment.
Oh man,
you got any, Matt?
So I'm
drinking all of your sake by the way.
Besides those, the other hilarious one is when Eris, essentially the final thing Eris does to seduce Rudy, I thought was hilarious. When she's he's like, I'm a kitty
I know
now.
I wrote that. Yeah, yep.
If you could write it down, because in the manga it's slightly different.
Okay, in episode 22, I want to be your little kitty, meow.
Yes, and
then that's what sent Rudy fucking off the cliff. He's like, okay, boner at maximum, we're going.
Yes, and I thought it was hilarious only in the context that it was like, all right, that's what sets Rudy off.
The furries.
He was finally getting some, so...
Oh, he totally made the world know. He got out of that little tent, it's like, today is a happy day. And he turns around and finds out that his happy day left him yesterday.
He was tired and he didn't know why. But in the manga, she says, I want to be your little kitten all night long.
Oh, there's that little bit of a difference?
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that now versus like in 15 minutes. So that there's this good comparison.
Yeah, the reference would have been a little weird later.
Yeah.
So it was. I found it more funny in the anime just because you got the reference and then you saw it right away. Yep. It was a little more serious. Let me rephrase that. I took it a little more serious in the manga, but I take everything a little more serious in the manga than what it would be in the anime.
Ooh, what's fun about that is my initial reaction would be, yeah, because that's the original source.
Yep.
But I know that this actual original source was a 2012 online novel.
Yeah, a web novel and then into a light novel, so it might be completely different, might be the same. Unfortunately, I will probably never know because it's not going to be one of those that I read the light novel for.
Yeah, that's insanely time consuming.
Yes.
Not to say that it's not going to be bad or anything, but like that's just not our vibe.
It's unlike No Game, No Life, for instance,
right,
where we will probably get a conclusion. I don't need to read the light novel to know the conclusion.
As fun as it would be, that's not what this podcast is about.
Yes,
this
exactly.
This is about anime.
So just a lot more serious moments in part 2 than part 1.
Yep.
Which I'm okay with. You need those ebb and flows in the series, at least to be a top tier series. You need ebb and flow. Mm-hmm. I'm perfectly fine with watching rom-com kind of stuff where it's all punchlines and jokes and a little bit of seriousness, but to be top tier type stuff, you need everything.
Yeah, you need the suspense, you need the suspected growth, you need to know that someone is going to grow well beyond what they already are compatible with.
Yeah, I would say this is, like I had mentioned in part 1, I 100% see why this was considered anime of the year.
Oh, definitely.
It's got pretty much everything you're looking for. Yes, some of the perviness you can deal without, but it doesn't deter it. It's not often enough that it deters the anime. So I am perfectly fine with the way it is.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I would give this anime pretty much deserves a 10 out of 10. The only reason I wouldn't give it is because of its perviness. Like, we need to learn to push away from it. Like, Rudy he's become mature to, like, understand how to keep his barriers, but at the same time, he's still fucking pervert. Like,
he's still going to be the same guy that makes the Roxy figure.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on where you are with essentially the Japanese culture with anime. I don't even know how to defend it. But like, I mean, we don't do these kind of ratings on our show, but like, I want to give this a 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 because the show is absolutely amazing. I would give it a 10 out of 10 minus the perversion. The perversion, don't get me wrong, eventually after you become numb to it, which is very, very strange to say. Don't get me wrong, and I'm sure everybody agrees, once you become numb to it, we're all anime watchers. After you get used to it, it becomes comedy. And then after it becomes comedy, then you can grow on it. And that's fine. And because of that, I'm just going to give it a 9 out of 10.
I can agree with that. It was very good, and it's had me hooked since probably the first couple episodes. I want to know what's going on for season 2. I'm interested and devoted to seeing what happens to these characters.
Exactly.
Speaking of characters that we had kind of mentioned that I really want to know a lot more about is Orsted. We We did bring him up earlier, but we just kind of mentioned how we had ran into him and haven't really talked too much about him.
Yeah, exactly. Orsted is the dragon god.
Yep.
Class, because there's what 7 classes.
Yes, there's
he's just below the
technique god.
There it is, the technique god.
Yes. So we don't know anything about him right now.
Right. So at this moment, I am expecting that there's a hierarchy, that the technique god is kind of like the avatar of everybody. I'm just gonna walk on a limb. I'm just gonna assume that this technique god knows a little bit. Scratch that. He's gonna know everything about every technique, and he's just gonna be the best of the best. And then everybody thinks that dragons are fucking powerful. So personally, I would assume that dragons are powerful. I don't remember the next couple tiers. I didn't take the time to write it down because they went through that.
They went through all of them. They do mention it.
Yeah, there was that stone.
Yes. So the 7 gods are the technique god, dragon god, fighting god, demon god, death god, sword god, and north god.
There's a fighting god above the death god?
I did not write them down in numerical order. I don't know. I just have them written down.
Oh.
So I don't know how
the strength priority goes?
Yes.
Okay.
But one thing that they do talk about is that the Orsted, the dragon god, is technically stronger than the technique god. That if they mention that the...
Okay, so this number system doesn't mean shit.
I think it does, but it doesn't at the same time.
That's just something we're going to have to learn.
Yes.
Okay. Shit.
It'll be very interesting to find out more about this information. They do talk about how they don't really know where any of them are.
Right. Location-wise.
Yeah, even Orsted, they talk about how nobody's ever really ran into him.
Because he's a cursed child.
Yeah, he's a cursed child.
He's a cursed child, so Man God has no idea how to envision anything.
Yes. Hidegami mentions that he can't track him or do anything, so he has no idea what's going on with Orsted. So that would be interesting to see if we find out any information about any of the other gods or not. The only thing is that we know the fight with the demons kills 3 of them. I don't even know if they go into which 3 died.
No, as far as the anime is concerned, they don't know who is alive or who is dead.
So I think the demon god is sealed. So they talk about sealing Laplace in the first part of the season. So remember that tower, they talk about how they seal up. It takes all the gods to seal up the demon god, and 3 of them die in the process. Or it might be 4 of them.
Personally, no, but I guess this is a deep dive that you've relinquished on your manga visits.
Maybe. I don't remember exactly. It's been a minute since I've watched season 1. But they do talk about how during the fight with Laplace, who is the demon god.
Laplace is the demon god?
Laplace is the demon god.
Okay, so we have an official name for the demon god. Okay.
Which they don't talk about in the anime. That is from the manga.
I mean, they've made mention of the name
Laplace.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
But I don't remember them officially titling him as the demon god or anything of the sorts.
Yes, so he is the demon god. He is the one that convinces the demons to fight alongside him in order to basically allow the demons to be considered the same class as humans.
Okay.
While that happens, it takes, I want to say it's 4 of the other gods are fighting Laplace to try and essentially seal him up. And Lance has now killed the 2nd bottle of sake.
Yep, I have consumed
1.5 bottles.
I've consumed 1.75 of the bottles that I have offered today. Yeah, I have a lot of sake in me. It is very good.
To continue on with the story, the 4 gods, of the 4 gods, 3 of them die in the process to...
Wait, is there a total of 7 or is there 7 techniques?
There's 7 gods.
Okay.
So remember there's the 7 crests on that stone. So there are 7 gods.
Okay.
And
But you're saying 4 at the moment.
3 of them die trying to seal Laplace. And then there's the one that is in that floating castle.
Yep.
That is he's the one god that survived trying to seal up Laplace.
Okay. But we don't know which class
No, they don't
he's
talk about.
part of?
I don't even remember his name.
No, I just remember a floating thing.
Yes, the floating castle. To go back to Orsted, it'll be interesting to see if we find out more about him, especially in season 2, because he was the one that obviously killed and revived Rudy and his group, because they believed that there was something interesting when it came to Rudy. At least that's what I inferred from their conversation that they had.
I mean, because there was an unknowingness between what he automatically assumed. Like, there was a blank space. Are you talking about Orsted?
Yes.
I assume
Yeah,
okay.
Orsted.
Orsted. So Orsted knew exactly who everybody was except Rudy. He's like, I know who the fuck you are. Who are you?
Paul shouldn't have a son.
Paul
doesn't have a son.
Exactly. Paul doesn't have a son, which I would assume was in this timeline.
Yep.
That's just what I took from it, because I just wanted to like jump ahead. And yeah, so this is not the order that the order of events are supposed to be taken.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see if he starts playing a bigger role into almost helping Eris and or Rudy becoming what he wants them to become.
Yeah. Oh, okay. At the same time, why would Orsted know this?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, really all
maybe
we know
maybe
is...
it's a curse.
It could be. We know what? We've seen him for maybe 10 minutes of screen time.
Not even, but yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
We don't know what his curses are.
Minus the fact that he cannot be seen by the gods.
By the man god, at least.
Yes. And that'll be... I'm curious / interested to know what's going to happen with him.
Yep.
If we even see him in season 2. I think we're going to.
Oh, I'd be disappointed if he wasn't. At least at the second half. Because he sounds like he's going to be the badass motherfucker at the end.
I think they were talking about... Rougeard had mentioned that if he wanted to, he could destroy the whole world. Orsted.
Dragon god?
Yeah, Orsted could destroy the whole world if he really wanted to. Something along those lines.
Fuck, I don't remember that.
I think it was just like a one-line sentence.
Well, obviously he's powerful. Yeah.
Yep. Well, I mean, he took out Rougeard barely trying.
Exactly.
So it'll be crazy to see. And like I said, I hope we get to see more of him. So one thing that I wanted to talk about was the way in which they introduce characters' backstories. So you get Roxy's backstory by her homeworld, which first you get Rudy going there, and then Roxy going there, and you get Galene's backstory by Rudy getting imprisoned by the Beast People, and then you get her backstory through her family talking about who she was prior to meeting her, but prior to our main characters meeting her. So I thought that was a really interesting and creative way to introduce these backstories without having like flashbacks with these people. You didn't think that deep?
No, I didn't think that deep. I was totally on board with you until you started talking about, I think the last thing you say was
Galane. Yeah. We got these super interesting people because we have Roxy and we have Galane that we're like, all right, so we know you're not from this area. Like, how did you get to this area? And Roxy, whom we finally got to see her going back to her family, she left because she
just felt like an outcast.
Yeah, what?
She didn't have the telepathy ability.
That's what it was. Yeah, she couldn't speak via telepathy with her people, essentially, so she felt like an outcast and hated. You could say she hated herself for it. I kind of feel like that's...
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, she is born into this clan, and she didn't have this ability that everybody should have the ability for, and then she was just the outcast. So she felt like she didn't belong, so she ran away.
And then they also had one of your favorite lines.
Which was?
The 20 years one. Oh. You had mentioned that earlier. How the mom talks about, hopefully I can see you in 20 years again.
Yeah, because these fucking people can live for like hundreds of years.
Yep.
I hope to see you every 20 years or so. It'd be nice. It's like saying stop by every other week in our lifetime, but like, no, it's every 20 years for them. Fuck that.
And then you also had the funny moment where Roxy's father gets like the light bulb goes off, because do you think Roxy has feelings for Rudy?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do.
And then obviously her Roxy's mother believes Roxy has feelings for Rudy, and then she talks about how, well, hopefully next time you can come back with Rudy, and then the father's like, no, he can never come back again.
They won't make babies. I refer. Yeah.
It was just one of those funny, like, oh, fuck, that's who he was to her. Okay, no, he is not allowed over here again.
Little does he know he's making perverted statues of her on the side.
Just the one.
Just the one.
Just the one with the mole that got removed.
Speaking of statues,
yep.
I think it's a super cool concept that every time Rouger does something cool or good, let's put emphasis on good,
yep,
that they give out a statue so that they remember that a superb did something good for humanity. And obviously that's what's going to cancel out the Superb's curse. So I mean, we will see that in the future, obviously, because we'll see that the Superbs are obviously going to become, I don't know, equal class.
Oh, that's what, excuse me, so now you reminded me, that's what Rougeur's goal was. That's what he had sought out to do, was to find the rest of the Superbs.
You want to find?
Yes, he went to go search for the rest of the Superbs. That was his mission when he left. Thank you for reminding me about that.
Oh shit, you're welcome, because I thought his base course was to just make the Superb class just
well,
we're your friendly neighborhood Superbs. We're nothing to be fearful of.
Yes, that was one of his goals, but his main goal was to go find the rest of the Superbs. I also have a question. Do you think he just walked around with a backpack full of figures once he left?
Rudy?
Yeah. No, Rouger.
Rouger?
Yeah. Do you think he's just walking around with a...
I would like to hope that he had at least, I don't know, 5. At least.
Oh, I was going to say like 100, but okay.
100? That's a big-ass backpack.
I mean, it was a big-ass backpack, so...
You would hope that. But, okay, we did describe in the beginning of this episode that we would talk about the OVA.
Yes.
And in the OVA, Eris was fighting, and when she was fighting, she was asked who she was.
Yep.
And she described herself as...
She described herself as a Superb to the princess person. Is that what she was?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, she was... I want to say she was the princess.
Yeah, and so I want to say, like...
The red-haired Superb.
All I want to say is that spreading the word of the Superb's good deeds could be as easy as even a random-ass child, whatever. I mean, that's all you have to do is just, like, say, I'm a Superb, and then Bert, and just fucking skirt out of the way.
Yep.
That's all that matters.
I will... So, just because we are on the OVA, because I didn't have a whole lot to talk about, watched it, I was like, oh, okay, cool. You get to see 20 minutes of Eris, and that's really all I took from it. Because it's an OVA, it's kind of extra stuff. We're probably never going to see that kid again.
By the way, how about you? But we're in April.
Yeah.
I don't know where this time frame is going to be in for everybody listening, but the show was in Japanese.
Yes, it was.
You watched the Japanese yourself?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so we both watched this in Japanese. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, it was... The only cool thing was to see the voice actors for the individual characters in Japanese, because we obviously watch everything dubbed to begin with, for the most part.
Yeah, we like to make sure everyone has an option to watch what we're talking about.
Exactly. So, for the most part, minus a few shows here and there, I have no idea who the voice actors are in the subbed Japanese version. So, it was interesting to kind of get a glimpse at who those individuals were. But as far as the OVA, I really didn't get a whole lot out of it. Did you?
I mean, it was a fun OVA. I mean, they totally did fill in that arc between Rubius getting his ass beat in with his dad and Eris showing up after she slayed obviously a couple goblins.
Yeah, so that one day it wasn't bad. More Jobless Reincarnation content, so I was happy with it. But as far as the story itself, it was fine. There was the title as compared to what the actual concept of the story was, made no sense.
I would like to say 99% of it made no sense. But what if that motherfucker Cliff?
Yep.
Cliff was that main boy.
Yep.
Cliff was the one that had that army attacking that defenseless.
The princess. Yep.
The defenseless woman.
He was trying to get. Essentially, he was a part of the church, and the church is trying to throw over the matriarchy. I'm going to assume, basically the queen.
Yeah.
Trying to take over the queen, and so in order to do that, unfortunately, you have to kill the princess. So I think that's what it was. But he was basically trying to show off how powerful he was. When in all actuality, we're like, yep, Rudy's like 100 times better than you are. You're nothing.
I mean, but Rudy wasn't part of that.
Yes, exactly.
Eris was. And as soon as Eris was slaying everybody, that last soldier was like, Lord Cliff, I'm so sorry, or along those sorts. Like, we found out at the end that those same soldiers that got slain were the same exact soldiers that were posed to be the bad guys.
Yep.
Even though...
In this context, we can take them as the bad guys, but yeah, exactly. According to Cliff...
It could be a toss-up because we don't even know.
Yep.
Like, yeah, sure. Eris went out there to slay some goblins, and then she said, fuck it to these base-ass soldiers. They don't know shit.
I mean, that was one cool thing is you got to see badass Eris again.
Yeah.
I guess if you wanted to throw some positive spins out there.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, it was an OVA.
Yep, exactly.
It was fun. I don't know if it has anything to do with season 2.
Nope.
Because obviously we don't know anything about things.
It wouldn't make sense to be a part of season 2 because it's between the two conversations Rudy has with Paul. So that's kind of far behind where we have gotten to up to the end of season 1.
Yeah.
So.
It's a stretch. Plus it's an OVA.
Yep.
Which means an OVA typically means nothing to the original series.
Yep, exactly.
So it's just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry. Eris is just slaying goblins and that's it.
But to get back to part 2 of season 1, I had mentioned the backstories, and it was great to see a different way on how they introduce backstories. That's probably going to be my favorite part as far as what season 1 is concerned. I will be interested to find out if they do that again with more backstory type stuff. So, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
As far as this season goes, I'm just be clear. I'm just so excited to hear what the fuck is going to happen next.
Yes. And as of now, season 2 has been announced. The release date has not been announced, but season 2, a true season 2, has been officially announced. So that'll be great to see. So,
all right, I'm on board with that.
Yeah, if you have nothing else, I guess we will go into the manga mentions.
Yep, let's get some manga mentions.
NANI?!
All right. So, in case anybody wants to follow along with the manga, season 2, well, I guess you could technically say that since we are covering all of season 1 ends on chapter 51. It is pretty on par with a lot of other animes where it's in the 40 to 50-ish chapter range when it comes to a 12 to 24 chapter manga. So I'm glad they have kept true to that. To go back to part of the conversation with Sylphie, I did get a little bit of a spoiler when it comes to season 2. It is about 2 chapters, so chapters 38 to 40. You get a slight glimpse of what potentially could happen in the beginning of season 2. And Lance, unfortunately, to ruin your hopes and dreams again, Sylphie is not pissed off at anybody.
Man,
I
tried.
I love to kill your vibes when it comes to future endeavors.
It was a decent shot. Go on.
What I will say is it's a nice little blip. It does explain what happens to Sylphie after the mana disaster, but other than that, I'm not going to go into it just because I don't want to spoil what happens in season 2. There's not a whole lot. Just know that Sylphie is obviously still alive, and it's a
nice little, I would probably say episode or two is what it'll be for season 2. They may make it into 2 episodes. So it won't be a whole lot of context, but there'll be something there. So it'll be nice to go into some of the differences between the anime and the manga. When Rudy goes and saves all those beast children in the dungeon, there are no dead children. So all the 6 beast children are all alive when he goes and saves them. So that's something that's kind of nice. They go into... I'm trying to remember. So do they talk about essentially the purpose of the holy beast dog? Do they really talk about that dog at all? Like what his role is?
Purpose?
Yeah.
Oh, the purpose.
So in the manga, they explain that when he grows up, like completely grows up, he will venture off with a hero, and with his power, him and the hero that he ventures off with will help save the world. So we may see that beast dog again in the future, because that attraction, we'll put it that way, the attraction that the dog and Rudy show each other, might be the context in which he has essentially marked Rudy to be his hero.
Yeah, and that's kind of one thing I kind of wanted to bring up in the past was like there was an attraction between like Rudy was being a human, being a super normal human, and be like, oh my god, I love this dog. It's so fluffy. Like to us humans, it's so normal. But at the same time, this beast dog was getting horny off of it, and maybe
getting Rudy in trouble.
And maybe we're seeing a different angle that like this fucking dog is getting his jollies close to it. Not official, but like it's getting fucking weird.
Like I said, he might be marking his territory in quotations.
And I mean, they said it, but they didn't say it. That was part of my notes, and like shit was getting weird.
To continue on, when Rudy casts all that rain to help save the Beast Village, he doesn't have his staff. He does it without a staff.
In the Beast Village?
In the Beast Village.
Yeah.
That was one thing that
he didn't have a shit.
I thought it was kind of weird. That it was like, wait, so he went from being in prison to having a staff? That's a little weird. But he didn't actually have it. Something else that happens is Geese was the one that produces the final blow to Gallus, the smuggler guy. What happens is essentially Rudy and Gallus are fighting each other, and Rudy distracts Gallus enough to allow for Geese to sneak up behind him and basically knock him unconscious with a large rock. After that, you see that Gallus actually gets brought over to the authorities because, as you know, he is a smuggler of children, so got to make sure all those people get locked behind bars. You do see Rudy confess his feelings for Eris, and he mentions that she is dear to him, which is the most affection that you have seen Rudy display towards anybody, so it'll be interesting to see what happens later on. But as we know, Rudy and Eris do end up sleeping together. So Doris, that fat individual that you see during Eris's grandfather's execution, is labeled senior minister. So he is a individual from the church. Doesn't make him less pervy and manipulative, but it'll be interesting to see if we find out any more information about him. When Rudy and Paul meet for the first time, it is actually in the guild. Paul is in the guild, and I don't remember exactly what happens, but Paul and his group are in the guild and have a scuffle with Rudy, and essentially the same surprise happens. Rudy meets Paul at the guild, so basically Paul is super drunk and kind of belligerent, and Rudy tries to stop Paul being belligerent. He doesn't really notice who Paul is at this moment in time. They have a little bit of a scuffle, and then Rudy and Paul are like, oh shit, that's Paul. Oh shit, that's Rudy. So that's what happens in the first meeting. One thing you find out is Geese teaches Zenith how to cook, and in her her attempt to have Paul fall in love with her because Eris asks Geese to teach her how to cook for Rudy. And then Geese goes into this backstory how he taught his essential sister, who is Zenith, how to cook, and says he'll never do that again because Zenith and Paul fall in love with each other, and after they fall in love with each other, they leave the guild. And once they leave the guild disbands. So that's what happens to the Black Fang group, is that Paul and Zenith fall in love with each other, leave the guild, leave the group, and the rest of the group disbands from there.
Is it fair to say that they left because they learned how to cook together?
Not cook together, but Zenith learned how to cook for Paul, and they just fell in love with each other.
Okay.
So, Paul meets Rudy at the inn that Rudy is staying at, not at the guild. Just kind of a little... It shows the effort in which Paul is making to make amends with Rudy. When Roxy travels to Magurd, which is her homeland, she actually travels with all of her party, not by herself.
Okay.
Doesn't really... It changes absolutely nothing. It's just context.
Is there still that emotional
Yes.
aspect?
Yep, exactly. So Kisha-Riku, and Roxy do a Captain Ginyu pose after they're super drunk.
Captain Ginyu?
Yep, Captain Ginyu. So they do like the weird like stance thing with each other.
So they go back to some... So they reached out to some Dragon Ball Z shit.
Yeah. It's just a little Easter egg kind of thing. I found it hilarious. She also... Kisha-Riku brings up the fact that she was saved by Rudy. Like actually says his name out loud to Roxy.
But she was legitly saved. Like, without him, she'd be nothing.
Yes.
Okay.
So saving Aisha was slightly different. So they, you know how Rudy goes and sends a letter, and then Aisha basically starts following Rudy. Then the guards start following Aisha. That doesn't really happen. Rudy sends off the letter. The letter gets sent to that one woman guard, and then the plot kind of happens. Rudy does send the letter, and Aisha is the one that brings the letter back to Rudy, and Aisha gives... So you remember that box that Lilia had with the panties and the crest? So Aisha brings that to Rudy on their first encounter with each other.
That's a couple episodes prior to what actually happened, yes.
Yep. And also there's a letter that is in there from Lilia basically saying that to leave Lilia at the castle and just take Aisha. Aisha goes with Rudy and Eris into the castle. Like she leads them into the castle because she knows all the secret passages without getting caught by the guards. Rudy also knows at this point that Roxy is no longer at the castle. Then when they do get inside, they get spotted, and while Rudy flees, he drops his figures, which gets picked up by Pax's brother. So his brother finds these figures laying on the ground in the hallway.
Pax's brother, the one that's super obsessed
with the figures.
Okay.
Yep. And Pax and his guards, quote unquote, fight Rudy. Rudy makes a point where it's like, hey, they're not really trying.
Yeah.
So Rudy and Eris are fighting Pax's guards while they allow for Aisha and Lilia to escape. Pax's brother basically does the same thing as in the anime, where he runs into Pax and convinces Pax to no longer attempt to keep fighting Rudy because of the figures. The guards let Rudy and them escape while Pax is distracted. So when the fight with Orsted, the gate that he uses is actually nullifying magic. That's what that gate does. It doesn't just suck in magic, it nullifies magic. Also, Rudy doesn't do that super awesome flame attack. Like, that doesn't happen in the manga.
Man.
It was super badass, which is why you don't see Rudy trying to do that again. All you see is Rudy trying to do the magic negate spell.
I can see that. But, like, I totally don't blame the original manga not to be like, yeah, he's going to blast a super powerful blast out of nowhere.
Yeah, because at this point, it's a little beyond beyond what we know of Rudy having as far as power.
Right.
Yes, he is a prodigy, still a little beyond his ability. So when Rudy dies, you see him as his reincarnated body. So his 14-year-old body. So you no longer see him again as his fat, worthless body.
In the manga, you see him as
His reincarnated self.
as his boy self.
Yes. Versus being the original self.
But in the anime,
In the anime, you see him in
we
his...
see him as his fat self.
Yep.
Still trying to make right of any kind of wrong.
Yep, exactly.
That's weird.
In the manga, they have the whole conversation with Kitagame versus in the anime, I have it backwards. In the anime, you see the whole conversation. In the manga, you see Rudy being dead. You see his dead body and as his reincarnated self, and then he just keeps making mentions of what Kitagame had mentioned or had spoken to him, like what had happened in the anime. So you just see it in the anime versus knowing about it in the manga. So after Rudy's revival, him and Eris kiss because she gets all emotional thinking that he was dead, and then they have a moment and they kiss. Kind of a big moment because up to this point, you know that they have feelings for each other, but they've never actually expressed those feelings towards each other. And Eris is the one that actually initiates the kiss with Rudy. He reciprocates, and then at the end, you see him sulking, but it doesn't happen over the course of a long period of time. Basically, he's like, I can't do this. I have to go find my mom. And he gets up and leaves. Like, it's not this whole super long, drawn out process. No, it's like, I'm upset. I'm really upset, but I can't just not do anything. I still need to go find my mom. So he gets up and goes.
Well, that's a big difference between one episode versus like one manga.
Yeah, it was probably like 4 pages of him just kind of sulking and having this internal conflict with himself.
Oh wow.
So he just kind of he's questioning the reason why Eris did this, and then he's like, I can question myself all I want, but I still have to go find Zenith. So he does.
Right.
He just leaves and goes and finds Zenith. And as I had mentioned, the end of season 1 ends on chapter 51.
Doesn't sound too bad. I mean, especially if we're talking about like a technical 23, 24 episode series.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty on par. I've seen some where you get that much information in 12 episodes, and I've also seen it in 24 episodes. So it really just depends on the manga/anime that you're reading.
Right.
And that's everything. You want to close it? You want me to close it?
So that's pretty much the rest of this episode.
Yep, I would agree. So yeah, I'd agree. That's everything I have. Everything you got, Lance?
Yeah, I'm pretty tapped out. I really don't have anything else to add.
Okay.
That was a good manga moment.
It was good. About 5 pages worth of notes, which is pretty on par. So they like I seem to say on all these really good animes is that they do a very good job of sticking true to the manga and or maybe the light novel.
Yeah, and we kind of tend to see that season 2 will pick up on some of that. So
yep,
we'll see what happens next.
Thank you everybody for listening to another episode of the Anime Lounge podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe on all of our platforms, and keep an eye out on all of our social media pages for any important information that we have.